Hey everybody, I'm here with Lane Bess today from Deep Instinct, and Lane has been such a big force in this industry. As you know, he's got a great history running many successful companies. Great of him to spend some time with us today. So thanks for joining me, Lane. Where are you based today? Where are you out of?
Well, I'm actually in Los Angeles today. I've got some business on the West Coast, but
Outstanding.
normally I'm out of Miami Beach. But
That's what I
I'm
figured.
a,
Well,
I'm a
good.
moving target. Most people know me as being a
Well, I
moving
hope to
target.
be joining you sometime soon down that way. I'm looking at some property in Florida on the Gulf Coast.
Ah,
But so we'll start with our first question, Lane, and it's really what inspired you to get Deep Instinct started? I mean, you have started and run some phenomenal companies. Why Deep Instinct?
yeah. Well, first of all, you have to continue to be inspired in the cyber industry because it's ever changing and ever challenging. And really, the inspiration with Deep Instinct was as an investor. After I'd successfully gotten Palo Alto, Zscaler into the public markets, I started investing in some cyber companies. And this one caught my attention because it delivered on a promise that I really could never make with any of the companies that I'd been involved with previously. And that is this notion of preventing threats. We'd all known, and we know now, the AI narrative about the sophistication, both on the positives, but also the shadows and risks. I've always been looking at the innovation, the disruptive technologies, the things that people might not go after right away because it seemed like a big mountain to climb. And the prevention of cyber threats, in my mind, is really the next challenge. We have a lot of technologies in defense in depth, access identity management, orchestration, and even really good EDRs, but they do exactly that. They detect and remediate. So I'm inspired and I invested in the company, inspired by the sophistication of the technology that could translate into real customer solutions to prevent cyber attacks.
Well, that's good motivation again, right? Yeah, if you see something on the horizon and you're willing to put your own money up and take that risk, again, part of this whole series is about founders and CEOs willing to take some risks in this crazy market. You dipped into this a little bit. What makes Deep Instinct so unique? What's different?
Yes, and we could talk the technology, but the technology is really just behind, the what we do. And really, what we do is we focus on a problem that has not yet really been addressed, and that is data security. And we call it zero-day data security.
Hmm.
The truth is that all of the attack vectors that everybody are either guarding against or experiencing are really getting at your data, your crown jewels, the things that represent your brand, the things that, if held for ransom, are going to cost you a significant amount of money, and just the data that you have for your customers. And so much of this data sits in large repositories, either on-prem through network attached storage, and a lot of it in the cloud now, moving to AWS, Azure, Google, Oracle. This is the ultimate goal of attackers, second to none, whether it's through social engineering. So, Deep Instinct has solutions for zero-day data security. And that is in the storage, that is in applications that move a lot of data in motion, and it also is on the endpoint.
Yeah, interesting. That is unique, and I see why you want to invest in that and why you decided to take on the role there. So, you and I talked briefly about this before we started recording today. Is there are so many vendors in this space. It's approaching 5,000. It's just insane. How do you cut through the noise? What sort of
Yes.
makes the difference, and how have you found the ability to do that?
Yeah, well, the truth is, it is very hard to cut through the noise. I think the next few years we'll see a lot of the companies that we all know and that we see at RSA, at Black Hat, find themselves part of a consolidation play. And the challenge here is finding the strategic green field or white space in the
Mm,
solution. It's not good enough to have great technology if, in fact, you can't find a solution space that strategically separates you from the others. And that is why we chose data security. Nobody really has been, and I'm not talking about DLP or DSPM, the actual scanning and securing of data. We see companies that have been successful in reinventing spaces. Examples
Hmm.
are my last few companies. But reinventing spaces is becoming harder and harder to do at this point. So, in terms of strategically placing yourself, not where five other solutions are existing or where you're the third solution in a market that's already been created, you truly have to have an innovation that's attacking a very specific problem. Otherwise, and I truly believe this, there will be a lot of consolidation in cyber. But I will say it will continue to be a healthy market for innovation.
Mm,
And this is just because of the undying need. And it's
right.
going to continue with AI to be a challenge for many, many practitioners, particularly those in the SecOps that have to deal with the overload that comes with all of these advanced threats.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, as you said, the attack portfolio gets worse, right? So we have to have defenses. And while there are 5,000 plus crazy companies in the space, we do need innovation. So I'm glad you're an innovator. I know you can't speak to specific clients and we wouldn't want that, but is there a case study where, Deep Instinct made a huge impact for a client and maybe you use that sometimes as a referral client?
Yeah, yeah. And I'll speak specifically in the financial industry. I often view the financial industry as being the missionaries, the leaders,
For sure.
but they are also long sales cycles, we know, and
Yeah.
anybody seeing this
They're
knows
a
this.
little slow to move, but they want the innovation.
That's right. And they need the innovation. And without speaking to specific banks, although we have multiple, it was the data security challenge they had. What they realized is that so much of the data that they had, and we're talking petabytes and petabytes of data that were sitting on Dell EMC, NetApp, and some of them moving into AWS S3 buckets in the cloud. These were unscanned, and the old technology, in this case, Trellix, formerly McAfee, was good at a point in time, but its inability to truly apply the best AI, in our case, deep learning technology, to scanning at volume these petabytes of data,
Hmm.
just meant that there was so much data that was having advanced persistent threats. So we went in and we were able to essentially in days scan massive amounts of data that was stored, and we found the unknown threats that were sitting there just waiting to be accessed. This led to another important solution that we have, which is our data security for applications. And that is corporate applications, custom applications. Every company enterprise has these,
Right.
and governments as well. And it might be an inventory system. It might be uploading files for mortgage applications or loan applications. The challenge of the developers shifting left is they have to develop these to service the business units, but they never know whether these applications that they're developing present a risk for all types of files that are uploaded and passed, not only internally, but to third parties. Our ability to provide at scale and speed, the ability to scan any data flowing through custom applications allows banks and other enterprises to launch applications to service the business units
Hmm.
and know that all of the data passing here is going to be secure.
Yeah, there's that big union between applications and data. We're in a series right now where we're talking with members about the relationships between CISOs and developers. And the data side of it is a part that sometimes does get ignored, as you mentioned. Well, that's a good case study. Um, Obviously, you tipped on this a little bit, AI, right? Suddenly on the scene, generative AI. But for many in the cybersecurity space, AI has been behind the scenes for a lot of solutions. Where will AI impact you, and where will you take advantage of it?
Well, again, going back to your very first question to me, the inspiration here was specifically around the uniqueness of the Deep Instinct AI in the form
Mm,
of deep learning. And again, we're not going to have time today to talk about the difference between a deep learning model and a machine learning model, but they are indeed significant. Time to training those models, the parameters that allow you to essentially train those models with large data sets, unstructured data sets, and the neural network capabilities that a deep learning provides. And we've kind of coined this statement. Some have kind of stolen it. If you're going to protect against AI, because AI will be a tremendous tool for bad actors, you need to have better AI. But the way we say it is, with Deep Instinct, you have the best AI to combat potential AI attacks. AI will be a tool. And I'll just make a side note here. If you take a look historically, the adoption curve of new technologies or sciences like AI, it favors the bad actors. In the early, say, few years, the bad actors using simple tools can get a jump on the CISOs, the people that you and your organization work with regularly, because simple tools can evade and or help socially engineer attacks. The CISOs have to reconcile, obviously, the investments they've made, the technology they have, and then figure out how AI is going to act to their benefit. And then the CISOs catch up and the bad actors can be held at bay. We accelerate that learning process with the level of sophistication between our deep learning and Deep Instinct for data security, on servers, on storage, on applications, and on the endpoint.
Yeah, I had a feeling from my recollection of back when we first started talking a few years ago, I knew that you were very interested in the solution because of the underlying AI and a strong driver. You've been to RSA and Black Hat many times, and suddenly buzzwords
Yeah.
pop up on every single booth. You really built it into the technology.
Well,
Right?
and it goes back to, again, who I've been. I've always, whether it was next generation firewall, or whether it was transition of proxy to the cloud with Jay Chowdhury at Zscaler, or in the case of AI, when I first invested in this company, it was 7 years ago. It was well before everybody was talking about ChatGPT
Right.
and all of what we've seen today. So I'd like to think that my involvement here, first as a board member investor, now as CEO, has really allowed us 7, 8 years of building a very strong answer to the threat side of AI to enterprises and governments.
Well, that leads me to my last question, which is something I'm sure you've done many times as an advisor, is what advice would you give to a startup in this space? Again, 5,000 plus companies. Someone comes to you and says, I'm looking for an investment. I've got this great cybersecurity idea. What kind of advice do you give those startups?
Yes, I'll go back to one of the comments I made early, not to be repetitive, but you truly have to have a clear space of differentiation. And sometimes that comes by identifying just simply a new potential attack risk,
Hmm,
or a better way to solve a problem. Without mentioning specific companies, we've seen this happen iteratively. We've seen how companies like Wiz have accelerated their growth because they've done some things differently and better, than other companies. We've seen, George Kurtz essentially recreate the endpoint market.
right.
He took his experience from McAfee and he essentially created the next generation endpoint and
You did.
protection services. I call it McAfee 3 or 4.0, but he did in that
Exactly.
space. So you're either going to find a white space or you're truly going to have, call it a quantum leap in
Hmm.
terms of what you can do in a specific space. And I have to put the plug in there. Deep Instinct has put a quantum leap in terms of the efficacy, low false positives in terms of protecting data, and also enhancing protection even on endpoints.
Yeah, I think a number of your peers have said similar things in this particular question, and oftentimes the other thing that comes up is product market fit, which is in essence is what you're
It
saying,
is. It,
right?
it all begins there. So again, not to plug a book I'm writing, but I start, with product market fit as a foundation. You have to have that. And then the other thing is go to market. Go to market has changed so much. And I'll say that there are a lot of great startups and technology that do find that product market fit, do find that clear space and technology differentiation. But where they falter is in the go-to-market.
Right.
And so, in that sense, my advice to a founder, CEO, is surround yourself with the really good executive team that not only helps you realize the potential of the technology, but also helps you on that very critical go-to-market piece of the equation.
I agree. I think it's so important, and it's the advice that we hear so many times. So, Ling, you're very generous with your time. Thank you so much for
No,
taking
my
time out of your
pleasure.
busy
Thank you,
schedule.
Bill. Appreciate it.
Outstanding.